We're ready to go? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Although we're midway through our competition, I'm welcoming you to Collegiate Star League's Grand Finals, hosted here in Toronto for the first time. We are completely honored to have the best collegiate teams and schools represented in our event here in Toronto. I want to greet, first of all, our in-theater audience. Hi, everybody. With big shout-out to the in-theater audience. And as well, we're welcoming a global audience from by virtue of our support from our great friends at Twitch. Mark, I'm going to get to you in a moment, but thank you to everybody who's watching us from around the world. We're thrilled that we're into the midst of our competition. Saw a great StarCraft final yesterday. Beat Montreal, showed their mastery over Temple. And late last night, Simon Fraser beat UBC to repeat a defeat in a competition from a year ago. So UBC, we've got some work to do. Next year, it's going to be yours. I know it is. We've already had some great matches. You're going to see we're midway through the Dota event. UConn did kind of show their mastery as well over Long Beach, and we're into the second match right now. That will complete later this evening, and then tomorrow we go into our CSGO championships, so we're really looking forward to that. Yes, go. I have a few thank yous to get through, and then just a couple of remarks, and then I'll move on. Duran is really the guy you want to hear. First of all, I mentioned earlier, Garvey from Twitch is here. Twitch has been an unbelievable supporter of collegiate esports. We think they like CSL the best, but that might be a little biased. But without Garvey's, he's our angel. He keeps collegiate esports programming front and center for Twitch. It's a very important dynamic in this growing and burgeoning realm of esports, and without Garvey's help, we would not have the footprint that we do, and collegiate esports would not have the relevance it does on a global basis. So, Garvey, thank you for not only for your support, but thank you for being here. We all owe Twitch, and with Garvey at the lead as the primary means of making that happen. Also, we've got some great sponsors here. ASUS, Republic of Gamers, they have been supportive of Twitch, or excuse me, of CSL for the last couple years. We're broadening our relationship with them in the coming season. More to come on that. So we're thrilled for them and their support of what we're doing. Band, the communications app that is very gamer-centric, also a big supporter and a sponsor for CSL. So we appreciate their help and presence at this event. Also, our content partners from Silver Chalice and Campus Insiders are here. Mark Munoz over here to my right, and Bonnie Bernstein. Bonnie, as you guys may be aware, is was a pioneer in women in traditional sports, and now is pioneering and doing a lot of work in esports from a content and a media and a broadcast perspective. So thank you guys for being here. We're thrilled to be in partnership with you. Also, our casters, these guys, I mean, are they not the greatest? These guys are so good. We've had the privilege of working with these guys for a while now, and they just make the events. They add significant color. Even if you don't know what's going on in the particular game, they add relevance and context to what is happening in the game. So we're thrilled to have all of them here. Nobody's behind me at the moment, but they're great to have them with us. And then kind of our endemics. First of all, to the CSL staff, this could not obviously happen. This was a rigorous, long season, culminating in this great Grand Finals event. So, and I do want to. I think we all owe a big round of applause for Duran. Not only is he the leader of CSL, but also he's graduating from law school this year. He's done all this while going to college, so you have to you just have to hand it to him. He's lived competitive gaming at the collegiate level, and now it's going to use his law degree to help all the aspiring players get big contracts with the pro teams, right? Or Duran is going to be part of the. So that's great. And I'm going to turn this over to Duran in just a little bit, but a few more thank yous. And also the World Gaming staff. World Gaming, I think everybody's aware, is the parent company of CSL. We share some common themes and some common missions we're going to talk about in a bit, but a lot of the staff is here to help with this. And then, of course, our overarching parent company, Cineplex, is we're in a Cineplex theater. We're in the signature Cineplex theater in downtown Toronto, the Scotiabank Theater, and this is a great immersive environment for watching these esports events and taking part in them. They're very intimate. You get a great sense of the visuals behind me, but also the sound and the overall lighting and engineering production is first rate. So thank you to all the Cineplex people for your help. And then also we're about to kick off a series of panels, and the panelists who are here, you're going to see them all shortly, and we're looking forward to all that as well. We've had an interesting mix of audience for the past 2 days. Not only the schools are here and the players representing, but a lot of fans from the schools. We've had a ton of media here. This is a dynamic in Toronto and in Canada that is still coming up in terms of awareness. So the media has shown great interest. They've been here. We've been covered as well as any sort of traditional sporting event in Toronto and in Canada, so we're thrilled for their support. We've had a number of brands here, brands looking to be a part of and affiliate with the esports space, still trying to figure it out, but it's great to have them. We also have some luminaries. Heather is here from Repable. She's very seminal in the analytics around esports, the company she's working with. I think we're going to hear more about that. And also we have the privilege and the honor of having one of the pro teams represented here, and Toronto-based and Toronto homegrown Luminosity. Shane and Steve are here. You're going to hear from them here shortly as well. Just a little bit about CSL. We are just culminating. This is the culmination of our 2016-2017 season. We've grown the footprint of CSL to almost over 900 schools across North America. A tremendous accomplishment. We have something like over 1,300 teams. Am I citing that right, Neil? We have a number of brands coming in to support what we're doing. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Twitch, and you're seeing essentially the final four of three of our four leagues: Dota, CS:GO, and StarCraft. Our League of Legends event yesterday was a bit of a invitational, but you're seeing these are essentially the final four of those three leagues. But we also operated last year Vainglory League, Vainglory mobile title from Super Evil Megacorp. Interesting, and that's a growing presence in esports. And also, for the first time, we had a console activation around Madden. Our Madden event actually culminated in a final in Columbia, Missouri, about 3 weekends ago, with the NFL's help and with EA's help. So more to come on all that in the coming season. One of the things that we as an organization are all about, and this is not only Collegiate Star League, but it's also World Gaming, is that we are not about the pro player. We are not about being involved in pro events, but what we are involved with are the grassroots, helping players who are aspiring to get better, to be better, through our programming, through our content, through our events. And that's a theme and a mission that carries forward not just from CSL, but also on the World Gaming side. And we work closely with the publishers. A number of our Call of Duty events have culminated in the winning teams going into CWL majors. We're doing a lot of work with Street Fighter along the same lines. And what we're doing with CSL is the same thing. As you all know, in this room, there's a blurry line between who's a pro and who's an amateur. Yet, what we're all about is anybody who's trying to get better and to be better in this space. We're supporting through our events and our programming and our content. So So that's a big part of our mission, and we're distinguished and differentiated in the marketplace because of all that. As we culminate here tomorrow, very early in the morning on Monday, we go right into our planning for the 2017-2018 season for CSL. I think it's safe to say we'll be expanding our footprint into more colleges and more campuses in the new year. You should expect to see some broader programming. We'll certainly be keeping the leagues that we have this year into the new season, but you can expect to see some more programming around different kinds of games, more platforms, really expanding the footprint that we have in the collegiate space. So we're looking forward to being able to reveal more about that in the coming year. I don't think I have a lot more to say. Duran is the expert in the space, so I'm going to turn this over to him. But I do, just on a personal note, and I can probably tear up over this. I have been involved in the video gaming space for most of my career, and have had an amazing. I could have been selling paper clips, but I was fortunate enough and lucky enough and completely honored to be part of this video game space and to help it grow. I was involved in the video game business before there was a video game business. So I've had some amazing. There's a message here which I'll get to at the end, but I've had some amazing experiences. I've sat with Bill Gates before the launch of Xbox. I had a dinner with Ono-san. If you know Street Fighter at all, Ono-san was the creator of Street Fighter, and we got out of a taxi in San Diego during Comic-Con, and literally I had to pull him away from the crowd. He was being mobbed, so he's a rock star and he's a god in Japan. So I mean, an amazing experience to have sat with him and to have dinner with him. The Wachowskis, you might remember, one of my companies was publisher of the Matrix game, and over the course of our campaign in getting our game launched, I watched one of the Wachowski brothers turn into a woman from a man. Not kidding. He went through a full gender transformation, and that was an amazing thing to witness. I sat on a couch with Derrick Rose and played a game of NBA 2K. I was told I was online playing a FIFA match versus Lionel Messi. I don't know that was really accurate, but I believed it. I'm going with it, and I'm telling the story till the day I die. And probably the most astounding thing that happened to me was I visited Neverland Ranch 3 times and sat with Michael Jackson to talk about his vision of a video game where he was the protagonist in a Final Fantasy-like sort of story. And needless to say, it never came to pass. But as I remember our meeting, we were sitting in his kitchen, and he was sitting across from me. There was a couple other people in the room, and this little girl walked into the kitchen and climbed up in my lap. And that woman is Paris Jackson, who is now the hottest thing on the planet. So I can't tell you how honored I am and thrilled and just can't express enough how lucky I've been to be part of this business. And the message here, and this is why did I just get cut off? Am I going on too long? The message here is that for all of you aspiring to be involved in video game, it's a great business. When I got involved in it, there were very limited sorts of opportunities, but now it's so broad between the business side, the creative side, the development side. Now, as a player, you can be a pro player. As a broadcaster, you see what these casters do. They're as valuable and as important to the space as the players are. So especially into this audience where there's a lot of collegiate energy and interest in video gaming, I would encourage you guys to keep with it, stay with it. The video game business is tremendous, and it's only getting bigger. Every time I think I've seen it all. We've been involved in esports now for the last 10 years, and it's given me renewed energy to be part of this and to stay part of it, and it just couldn't be a more exciting time in the video gaming space. So I'm thrilled to be part of it and encourage you guys in the collegiate space to do the same. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Duran. Thank you again for everybody for being here and for all your support, all our sponsors, players, teams, schools. We're thrilled to have you here, and we're looking forward to a lot more, and not only in the next 2 days, but for the coming years. So, Duran, over to you. Thanks, Gabby.
Yo, oh my God. All right, that was super loud. I feel like Wim said everything, but I'll say some stuff too. The coolest thing about Wim that I found out was that he knows everybody, like he mentions. Like, I seriously met him 2 years ago at E3, and he literally knew every single person ever. So that was pretty cool. So yes, this is the CSL finals, obviously. Actually, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, it was pretty funny. The first season we ran CSL off of Google spreadsheets, and now we are in a movie theater. Last year we were at DreamHack. The year before that we were in a bar in San Francisco. So it's kind of cool to see how this has actually progressed over time. We started with Brood War, if you guys remember that. The ultimate nostalgia game, Brood War Remastered, is coming out this summer, so at least I'm super excited for that. So part of what I wanted to talk about was just how CSL started, or how I got involved, because I feel like my story might be relevant to a lot of people who are like, hey, I like esports and I want to figure out how to get involved, and try to find out like how to get my way into the industry. And for me, it was primarily just two things. One, I really liked playing StarCraft. And two, I wanted to find other people who liked playing StarCraft and hang out with those people. And that was pretty much it. I found a group of people at my college, UC San Diego. Hype. I found a group of people at UCSD who played StarCraft because there was a tournament at school, and I was a competitive player. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go and win super easily, and it'll be awesome. And found a bunch of players at my school, and then we decided to make a team. We decided to challenge other UC schools, so we did that. And then my friend at Princeton, Mona, created a team, and she challenged MIT. And over the summer, we were like, hey, rather than have two separate leagues, let's just have one league. And over the years, it's just continued to grow from that small thing, right? So essentially, the idea is find like a thing you like. And the thing in gaming and esports too is that there's so many opportunities for like people of any type of skill or interest, especially with how new the industry is. Like whatever you're good at, whether it's like cooking or designing or developing or playing, like you can probably find a job in the esports industry. And that's really just important to figure out what you're good at and then like volunteer at different places. Like all of the staff at CSL, including myself, have just been doing it for a long time, right? So like the way everyone who's on staff got involved was they started volunteering, and then they grew with CSL as CSL grew. We've had some staff, obviously I've been around since 2009, so I'm going on my 8th year at CSL. We've had some staff who have been around since also 2009, since 2011, 2012, 2013, and so on. And so these people have gone on to grow with CSL. We've also had people who started at CSL, like Frodan, who's a super famous Hearthstone caster. First time he ever casted anything was our UCSD team practices. Then he started casting CSL. Then he got a lot more famous. People like QXC, who is his former StarCraft pro, started competing in CSL. So CSL is kind of like a gateway drug, which is pretty cool. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. One is I'm super excited to be here for our 10th season, which is awesome, and I hope that we have 10 more seasons. And secondly, I just wanted to say for people who are here and for people who are watching that CSL and esports in general can be a pathway. It can be a viable career path for people who are interested in it. And that if that is something that you're interested in, if that's sort of like your dream and your passion is like, I love gaming and I want to get involved, there are pathways to doing that. So just, yeah, be hype and be ready to volunteer for a long time and work many hours. Like those of us yesterday who were here for about, let's say, 22 hours, we finished at about almost 3 a.m., so that was super hype. Luckily, the league finals were really good, but that's pretty much all I got because we've got a panel coming up, and then we've got more Dota. Hopefully someone can beat UConn, but we'll see. They're super good. And now I'm going to throw it over to Neil, and let's go.
Thank you. So before we jump into the panel, I'm just going to say a few notes here about how excited we are to be here at Scotiabank Theatre, Toronto. I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of CSL. Duran told the story of the past and all the way up to the present. And we're here to talk about how we want to create an inclusive atmosphere on campus. Well, 2 years ago, we were on 225 campuses, then up to 450. This year, over 900 campuses. Next year, as we grow and scale and work with our partners at Twitch and Twitch Student especially, and having great partners in ASUS and Band and Campus Insiders, we're going to be on every campus. We're going to be playing every game, whether it be mobile, PC, console. We're already on all of these different platforms. Madden was our first entry into Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but come September when we launch registration, we're going to be on many, many more different games. We're looking at getting more partnerships involved on the pro circuit. We love these guys over at Luminosity and how we can pave that path to the pros. We want to be involved in Smash. We want to be involved in FIFA. We want to be involved in NHL, 2K. If there's a game and the community wants it, CSL is going to be your home on campus. We're going to create that competitive league. We're going to create the social league, and we're going to create the atmosphere where if you want to be a gamer on campus, you're going to play in CSL. So right now we're going to shift focus. We're going to bring out some fantastic panelists here. I want to introduce first Wim Stocks, who you just heard from. He is the CEO and GM of World Gaming. So if you want to grab your chair and slide on down, please give it up for Wim. Next up, we've got the co-founder of Repable. We've got Heather Ann Ritchie, who is one of the foremost leaders in esports analytics and streaming tech. We're thrilled to have her here today joining us. Heather, if you can come on down. And then last but not least, we've got a good friend of mine, someone who's helped pioneer the esports industry from his early days at Unicorn to his representation with the Esports PRC, which is trailblazing the way for young and ambitious gamers to get access to information, knowledge, financial help, legal help, and now he also serves as the COO of one of the biggest gaming clubs in the world, Team Luminosity, Shane Talbot. Heather's going to be joining us momentarily. I'm going to grab my chair. Again, my name was Neil Duffy. I'm the Vice President of the Collegiate Star League, and I'll slide this over here. Okay. Put that in the middle for Heather whenever she's ready.
Sliding down just a little bit.
Okay, so we got some bright lights here. We can't see the audience too well, but give us a round of applause. We're thrilled to have you guys here, and give it up. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the mic down the line. You guys heard from me. I work with the Collegiate Star League. We're doing the grand finals here in Toronto. First time we've come north of the border. Duran was mentioning some of the other destinations: San Francisco, Anaheim, Austin. What a reception we've had here in Toronto. The players are thrilled. A lot of them have been out sightseeing. A lot of them have been trying poutine for the first time. And we couldn't have asked for better weather. So that's my spiel from the CSL. And if you guys want to do a quick 60 seconds on yourselves, I'll pass the mic down the line.
Sure, thanks guys. So Neil already did a good job of going over my quick background in esports, but came from the tech startup industry, helped launch a few companies here in Toronto, as well as out in the Bay Area, and then joined a company called Unicorn. It's a software and wagering platform for esports. And then late last year, got a call from Steve Maida, the owner of Luminosity Gaming, about joining him and helping localize our team around the Toronto market. We're now competing in 10 different game titles. We're very much a tier 1 esports organization in all the games that we compete in. And yeah, I'm also building a not-for-profit with a group of people, including Neil, called the Esports Player Resource Center, or the EPRC. And that's effectively a network of, an ecosystem of support agents who can provide things like legal advice, financial advice, health and nutrition coaching, et cetera, to the esports space. And so we're creating a network that esports athletes can get access to, as well as a content library that anyone can get access to. Neil's going to be representing the collegiate side of things with the EPRC, and so we're certainly going to be creating a significant amount of content for the collegiate folks to make sure that they're well supported, as well as they transition from collegiate esports into pro esports, hopefully.
Guys, Heather Ritchie. I'm the co-founder of a company called Repable. We have been in the esports space for just under 2 years now. Granted, my co-founder and I have a tremendous amount of experience in gaming generally. We believe that in order for the industry to mature, and I think we're all seeing the evolution of that now, especially with the emergence of college leagues and things like that, that one of the things that is really going to help the industry grow up is sophisticated data. So what we do is actually provide data and analytics around the audience members that are consuming esports-related content. We understand that more people generally will watch competitive gaming content than will watch, in a lot of cases, in certain demographics, traditional sports, right? So we see that because the major sporting organizations are starting to take this very seriously. And so we believe that helping sponsors, pro teams, even the publishers themselves understand the reach of the work that they're doing will be pretty beneficial. So 2 years in on a tech startup, we've one of the few venture-funded companies in Canada, and really, really proud of that. We're in Toronto-based, so hometown company here.
Thanks, Heather. I had a little light on the stage, but I'll be brief. My name's Wim Stocks. I'm general manager of World Gaming. World Gaming was purchased a year and a half ago by Cineplex, showing some great vision about getting involved in esports. World Gaming's been an online tournaments platform for the last 7 years, formerly in the market as Virgin Gaming, but we went back to our roots in 2014. Just before we were purchased by Cineplex, we bought CSL, so that's why we're all here in the spotlight of collegiate esports. And as I mentioned, our mission, and I'll reiterate that we're not about the pro space. We recognize the importance of pros. It's the affinity building side of esports, and players who want to get better, they see pros and they see this is what they are aspiring to be and to be part of. But what we do, both in Collegiate Star League and on World Gaming, is to help and inspire the aspirational player to get better through our events, through our programming, through content that we're generating, and bringing the big funnel of accessible and available esports programming to the broad audience. Heard the story about the pyramid. The best players are the top 1% to 2% of the marketplace. What we're addressing and through our programming and hoping to add a value to are the 98 to 99% of the players who are looking to get involved, looking to get better, and that's our mantra. We wake up every morning and think about and try to implement the best ways to get the aspirational player to the next level.
Thank you, guys. So Since we've got a lot of folks here that are interested in the business of esports, we've got some brands and some partners and some sponsors here. We all see these reports from Morgan Stanley, from Newzoo, from Superdata that talk about the monetization of esports. Now, being entrenched in it on a daily basis, we all know the challenges and the hurdles that the industry faces. Maybe talk about what you think the future of sponsorship is going to be, whether it be from an org standpoint or an industry overall, or from a platform side, Wim, or an event side. Just talk about where you think we're headed. As you can see, the endemics are already staking claim, and how we're going to get these non-endemic brands into the space. I know it's a big question, but I'm really curious at your opinions.
Sure. Thanks, Neil. So my opinion on this is, how we're going to get them interested. That's already a mission complete. What we have access to is an audience that is effectively the holy grail of online advertising, and branding efforts, co-branding efforts, are probably one of the most effective ways to reach our audience because we're the strongest users of ad block. So if you try to reach the esports demographic through any traditional means, chances are you're going to come up against an ad blocked user. So I think associating your brand with endemic organizations or with platforms that can provide you with insight and reach to the right people is inherent. It's going to happen automatically. As Neil mentioned, endemics have been here for a long time, and so those are esports gaming peripheral companies and people who wanted to reach our audience before the rest of the world sort of woke up to who they are. But what we're now seeing is the entrance of non-endemic brands. And one of the opinions that I have on that is there's a window of opportunity now, and probably open for a short period of time, where the entrance of non-endemics is going to be really, really well received by the community in a way that I don't think you'll find in more established traditional sports. If you look at brands like Visa and Audi, sponsoring major CS:GO teams, for instance, the community reacts really positively to that because we all want to see esports thrive. And I think if you look at, contrast that against a brand sponsoring the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs fans know that the Toronto Maple Leafs are pretty stable, and so they don't get really excited about a new non-endemic, entering into the space. So I think there's an opportunity there for non-endemics to really seize a enthusiastic audience and to create significant, good PR, in the form of supporting esports in their early days, which is where we're definitely currently at.
Cool. Yeah, I can't agree with what Shane said enough around just the requirement in order to be authentic. And I think a lot of people, what they're trying to do right now is compare, rather the traditional advertisers that aren't necessarily as familiar with esports. What they're trying to do is compare the dollars that they're spending in vertical whatever with esports. And that's challenging right now because, a few things. One, you're not just, and we all know this, placing an ad, to Shane's point, in front of people on screen isn't going to be as effective. And there's some ways to do it kind of well, but generally speaking, isn't as effective as an integrated campaign that really puts the sponsor in a situation where they're built in. They almost feel endemic if they're not. They kind of buy their way in that way. Red Bull is a really good example. I don't pick favorites. I try not to, but they've created a ton of really cool content that appeals to that demographic. And so, using them just purely as an example, we see them creating things that are of value that help the average viewer really get to understand and know their favorite players, their favorite teams, their favorite orgs, et cetera. And I think those partnerships, and I think I would prefer to consider them rather as partnerships rather than, hey, we're investing or we're advertising in this space, because I think at this stage that's the way we really have to look at it. But I think the big brands will get involved, and this isn't a plug, please forgive me if it sounds like it is, but the more concrete information you can give them, one way or another, whether it's a team putting together a deck that says, here's how we compare to your traditional investment in other areas. Here's how our audience either overlaps or doesn't or is different. Giving them those numbers will help turn their current test budgets, which are typically like, we're going to throw some crap at a wall and see what sticks. Not sure how to measure it. I think by providing them with data to help measure it will really make a huge impact to helping them with the confidence that they need to make re-up investments.
You guys hit it on the head. I'd just add a couple things. First of all, it's been to how many conferences in the last year, and sponsorship is a big, big topic because it's the means by which this space is being monetized, at least at this point. The next big bucket will come from media rights, a la the BAM deal with Riot. More to come on that, but again, that's on the pro side. There isn't, and it's so clear, there isn't a brand in the world right now who isn't looking at esports. There isn't a CMO of any of these big brand companies who are trying to address the millennial and the Gen Z audiences that isn't looking at esports. There's a tipping point coming. It's not here yet. We know it's a different sort of proposition for most brands. Most brands are used to what's, how many impressions am I generating or going to generate from this opportunity, yet so much around esports is not impressions-based, it's engagement-based, and the enlightened brands are recognizing that and know if they affiliate and are starting to understand when they affiliate with an esports event or a league or a player or a team or whatever, they may not get the impressions, but man, are they going to get engagement. And that's a new dynamic for any marketer and for anybody in the advertising or sponsorship space. So something we have invested a lot of time and energy in. I think between Neil and myself and others here, we've had at least 200 meetings in the last year. More to educate brands and agencies about what esports is than anything. And Heather touched on the word, the authentic, for a brand to really benefit from an association with esports, it's got to be done in a very, very authentic way. Altruism is the most important thing when addressing this audience, and if there's even a slight miss, not only will it be ineffective, it'll actually be damaging to the brand. So more work is needed, more education is needed. That's what we're here for, and we're gonna keep it going.
I was going to say, good on the fans too, because we're such educated consumers now that we don't want, we don't respond well to just an ad placed in front of us and with the expectation to go buy. So I think good on the fans, because we're helping these brands really evolve in a big way too.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let's follow up on that. I think it's interesting in the sense of some of the integrations we see in sponsorship are home runs, and some of them are complete strikeouts. And I think we've all got some case studies that we can look at, and we've all got the favorites that kind of either tug at our heartstrings or really show us, I want to eat that sandwich, or I want to go to that restaurant. And I think you guys know where I'm heading with this, is talk about some examples that you've seen, and I'll let you choose either pro or con, of some sponsorship opportunities that have either been wildly successful or not.
Burger Clan. Have you guys heard of the Burger Clan campaign going on right now in Spain? Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about this for a few seconds. So Burger King launched a campaign in Spain with a really high production video announcing basically the fact that you could now order Burger King from people while gaming against them on PlayStation Network. So the memes that started popping up after this were incredible. I got involved in a Twitter conversation with a bunch of people trolling, basically propositioning what their sales pitch would be while they're in server. Hey man, nice KD, can I get you some fries with that? But basically the concept is that you earn a commission for selling Burger King delivery to people who you're gaming against. It's all kinds of problems with that. I'm glad that Burger King's entering and that they're going to help monetize our space, but they need to get people who understand how to reach our audience, I think, in a more effective way. One of the things that I'm really big on is contest marketing. So it's no shock to anyone here that esports exists on Twitter and Reddit for the most part. But we look at Twitter really as our main platform for getting out messaging about brand activations and stuff like that. And one of the most effective ways that we've found to reach people is to add value by giving them prizes that they value. So we do trips to events with our team, sponsored by our sponsors. And we give people sort of fun activations as a means for earning entries into those draws, into those giveaways. So there's some really cool content that's been done. Like, it's no shock to anyone that Arby's did a really cool job with their E-League sponsorship. Their content came across as authentic. It was simple. It wasn't over the top. They had the bomb ticker that everybody recognized from Counter-Strike ticking down, and then the burger blew up. I'm shocked that their brand people allowed their burger to blow up on screen. But for me, it showed that they weren't just putting any. They could have gotten the bomb ticker sound wrong, for instance, right? Like they had people who understood Counter-Strike working with them alongside them as they developed those campaigns, and so that really struck me as being authentic. And again, from the social perspective, I find that contest marketing as a means of adding value and also creating awareness for that activation is probably the most effective platform.
Cool. I won't take up too much time on this one because I already gave Red Bull props. I think the energy drinks do a great job because they know their market. There are some brands that just align super, super well with the demographic, and I think they're taking a pretty, a pretty smart approach at trying to make sure that they blend in. I will say though, the MeUndies, and I think it was Immortals, right? Campaign, I actually found really endearing. I mean, we're friends of the organization as well, so I'm a little biased, but the fact that I do not like to pass stereotypes, but I've known a lot of men in my life, and none of them really look forward or get excited about shopping for underwear. I mean, very few, I should say. And so, you took something that was so basic, which is we will deliver your underwear to your home, and positioned that in front of a, web-savvy people that understand e-commerce, people that don't stress about spending money on skins or downloads, and they put it in a price point that made sense. And tactically, they made it funny. They associated with a really popular North American pro team. They got the guys, which, believe it or not, their sense of humor is through this whole process. I have to give the team props because they showed up for this campaign. You're taking some 20-year-old, young people and asking them to promote underwear, but I'm telling you, I thought that campaign was actually really, really well executed. I know that the sales were quite successful as a result. The team had fun with it, didn't feel like it was too weird, and it was something that they needed and used like we all use, or most of us use, as opposed to trying to get them to pimp out something that felt inauthentic or didn't make any sense. So they let them have fun with it. That's what we're here for in the first place, right? More than anything, and I thought the campaign was just really well executed.
I just want to underscore and expand on what Shane was talking about when Arby's, because the success of that campaign is now legendary. They did Arby's, a QSR restaurant, pretty familial in its marketing and its approach in the past. Yet they recognized they couldn't bring or create any sort of allegiance with this audience with a familial kind of a campaign. So they lined up sandwiches in a gun range, and the CS:GO players shot the sandwiches, and so effective in terms of if anybody's been to a live major CS:GO event now, the audience is chanting "Arby's, Arby's." I mean, most brands would spend millions of dollars to have that sort of affiliation and allegiance, yet they did it by purely being very authentic and understanding the game and understanding the audience and being very targeted in their approach. So there are some examples of how not to do it, but we're here to accentuate the positive, not the negative. So I'll pass on that.
Sorry, Burger King.
Yeah, a bunch of great examples. I want to add a tidbit of my own, and I'm sure no one can predict it here, of who I think have done some great sponsorship in this space. I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Twitch Student, ASUS, Band, probably Super Evil Megacorp, Riot Games, and EA Sports, who have done a phenomenal job in growing, cultivating, and embracing collegiate esports. So thank you to those guys. That's my own plug, and it's shameless, and I know, but I'm not going to apologize. So as we talk a little bit more about the data side of the business, and as we grow here in sponsorships, and where are these ad dollars flowing, I think a lot of it can translate through the influencers. And I'm interested to see where you guys think this is going to go as people are taking their money off linear and shifting it towards this influencer marketing model. What do you see as the direction of that? What do you think can be, really improved upon, or what is the next iteration of influencer marketing?
Can we start down the other end this time?
Sure.
Influencer marketing we use a lot of, both at World Gaming and CSL, and it can be very effective. We're finding that our marketing spends are not only are we far more effective from a targeting perspective, we're actually saving money while being more effective. So it's an astounding sort of dynamic that we're seeing. one of the things though that I think we'll start to test and may kind of get on the wrong side of a consumer is that these influencers are getting paid now, and they're getting paid by a lot of different people to be influential for their particular brand. The minute that starts coming off as too commercialized or inauthentic, that word again, it's going to backfire. So I think there is a lot of gingerliness that has to be applied when an influencer is involved, and how we work with influencers. We can't expect that our presence is going to be overly commercialized. It can't be overly commercialized, or to my earlier point, it'll not only be ineffective, it'll actually hurt us. So it's an interesting time. Everybody, any brand is using influencers and I think the smart brands will recognize it cannot get overly commercialized, or it will start to implode.
Yeah, I think we see any brands that maybe are in the room or listening would certainly relate to trying to explore on this mission. And so, you look at people that do it really, really well. So the really super authentic, and I'll call them streamers, but gamers, broadcasters, influencers, however we want to refer to them. I'm thinking particularly in the live space, but I know that extends to multiple social channels. You look to the top 100 in any particular game you're looking to sponsor. So I'm a family-friendly centric brand. I'm probably not gravitating to the top 100, 1,000 Counter-Strike streamers, but maybe I would an Overwatch streamer, for instance. So I look at those people, and it's very easy through current search mechanisms to identify sort of the most influential people in that space. But to give props to CSL and some of the networks that are actually trying to build up-and-comers, the best spend today is actually not on those people because they're very expensive, but they have their act together. They know how to be authentic, but rather on those up-and-comers, so the rising tides, if you will, that maybe don't have the experience or the expertise in how to deliver something really in a cool way. It's Ninja, your guy. One of Luminosity's players he's got this whole shtick that when someone makes a donation, he puts on a monocle and puts a pipe in his mouth, and he kind of talks in this weird like London accent, and it's really, really funny. Like, he does a great job, but he's an exception, not a rule. Generally, in the people that are coming up that don't fall within that top sort of whatever category. And so I think we have two things that we need to do is, one, help brands identify the up-and-comers, but then partner them with their marketing departments or an agency that maybe really help these people understand how to deliver a message well and authentically, to give them some tips. Because the up-and-comers from a brand spend perspective are who you want, but they don't necessarily have the raw experience to deliver authentically. So there's a lot of room for a lot of people to create a lot of small businesses in the space. All that to say. And Ninja does a great job.
Thanks. So along the same train of thought as what Wim was saying is, with great power comes great responsibility, and we can talk a lot about why esports athletes and gaming streamers in general are so influential. I think I had a conversation earlier this week about the contrast between them and traditional sports, where a new player joins the Leafs. It might take you a few months before you really develop an affinity for that player. There's a significant degree of separation between you and that person, right? You get to watch them on the ice, and you might see a couple interviews, but they're very polished and they're all scripted in what they say. Whereas in esports ecosystem, you can watch a pro player, be intrigued by his gameplay, perhaps he plays a similar position as you play, and then watch that person play at night with effectively the equivalent of Sidney Crosby going around the ice with a GoPro on his head, and so it's very interactive. And also, the esports fan, I think, is a lot closer in similarity to the esports pro or the collegiate athlete than they are to a traditional hockey player, for instance. They've grown up with a completely different way of life than what you have, and so you might be a good hockey player and a big hockey fan, but you still don't really see yourself as being equivalent or on the same level as that player. Whereas I think in esports there is a bit of an armchair enthusiast mentality where you feel like you're pretty close to being perhaps as good as that person, and you're only a couple clicks away from being in game and being able to play, so you can be inspired by watching them and then all of a sudden minutes later be in game. So that creates huge opportunity to influence those people to mimic what it is that you do. And again, you have to really be careful with that power and be responsible with it we saw with the emergence of all of the skin betting sites in 2015 around CSGO, some really successful streamer careers were destroyed because they inauthentically and basically deceived their audiences by promoting platforms that they were actually behind the scenes running, and they were doing it in untruthful ways. So that's one of the things that we're also focused on at the EPRC, is helping people with these brand decisions, and we want to make sure that we're providing support, because it's tough. You go from unknown to all of a sudden, you're on the main stage. You could be discovered overnight in esports, and making sensible decisions about the opportunities that are thrown your way is probably beyond what we could come to expect from most of these people, just given where they've come from and where they are now.
You could be discovered overnight. We've got one of the greatest CSGO recruiters in the world sitting over to my right in Steve Maida. So thanks for joining us. One of the things I'm curious about is, since we have a lot of brands that have joined us today, if you had $3 million, $5 million, and we're talking today, where would that money go? And I know for myself, the answer would have been very different 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 24 months ago. And there'll be a follow-up question that I'm sure we could all predict. But if you had $5 million, what are you all in on right now? And we'll start with you.
So I've been asked this question by some investment bankers because they're looking to get into esports, and it's tough. What Heather and her team are doing at Repable is commendable. It's the publishers don't have a very open ecosystem, and so this is something I feel very strongly about, coming from a background in tech startups. You would think there would be more tech innovation happening around the video games that we're playing than we're seeing, and a lot of it is because of the restrictive access to the data that the publishers allow. I think it's a little short-sighted, to be honest. We won't knock on the publishers too much here because I know they're huge partners, but I would love to see a more open ecosystem where you could see further tech innovation. Personally, I think pro teams, because they're a fundamental pillar, and that's obviously a shameless plug as well. But also on the media side of things, right? Media is the be-all and end-all of esports. There's such a massive consumption of content on a daily basis, and you look at Reddit, for instance, how successful all of the gaming and esports subreddits are. They're all in the top, on the entire platform. I would be looking for opportunities to really scale up the quality of media and getting involved in some of those media agencies for sure.
Yeah, I have a super biased answer, because I would have to put, if I had $5 million, my business partners and my investors would look at me and say, cool, put it in your own company or else. So I'm a little biased there, but removing that from the equation, I would put my money in whatever communities or networks attract the largest volume of audience members, because I think the audience, well, the pros certainly provide the talent, and the talented ones are what draws the people in. The audience members are the ones that we monetize off of. We count on them to spend their dollars, and we certainly count on their fans, like their engagement and their eyeballs, to make us all, to put us all here, period. Because if it weren't for the fans, then we wouldn't, quite frankly, we wouldn't be doing this professionally. So I'd definitely invest in the communities.
My advice would be on two levels. First of all, whatever you do with that money, do it right. It sounds dumb and simple, but as we've been talking about, the brands who have proven their value to the audience, to the esports audience, have done it right. So that's first and foremost number one, right? But number one, but number two would be, this isn't about sponsoring an event or a team or a player. This is about a sustained presence for the brand. And if you're right with what you're doing, and a lot of brands are looking to dip their toes in the water right now. It's like everyone's going to test a few things, but if you believe esports is right for your brand, you got to commit to it and invest in it and sustain your presence to the players and the community and the overall dynamic. That's I think the smart brands are looking at that. We're talking to one. I can't really say who it is, but we're talking to one that understands that and say we're not just in this for a single event sponsorship. We want our brand to be elevated and associated with esports throughout. So that, again, $5 million in the space today, that's a lot of money. And a brand can have that was your figure, right, Neil? $5 million. That can buy you a lot with the esports community. But again, if you're not doing it right, that money is going to be a complete waste, if not if not damaging your brand.
Since we're here at the collegiate grand finals, July 2014, Robert Morris announces their first varsity program, including scholarships. Last year, there were 7 programs at this time. As of today, I believe there's 34. What do you think is the future of the collegiate landscape? How do you feel about the growth of scholarships? And how can we at CSL and the other orgs that are out there in the college space really help and support the pro circuit and beyond, whether it be finding careers or whether it be content creation or getting these jobs? If you had to sit down and mentor a college esports athlete or an aspiring high school esports athlete, what kind of next steps would you say? And this would be speaking directly to someone who wants to be involved in the space.
Sure. So inspiring someone to play at a collegiate level, obviously means practice, get better at the game. You're talking about just purely in-game performance. That's going to enable you to do that. And then obviously networking. We heard from Duran about how when he first started CSL is because he wanted to meet other people on campus that played the same game as him. And I had the same experience at Western. I played on ResNet, and we had like a 32-person open public server, and we spent hours playing on it. I think it was mostly CS Mansion, which is just not a competitive format for the game. But there were very quickly a few of us who emerged as being consistently putting up the most frags, and started messaging them. And a couple of them were in my res, and we met in the lobby of the what do you call it, the food court, and I've been friends with them ever since, and it was because of Counter-Strike as a result of that. So network, practice hard, get good in game. I love where collegiate esports are going. I'm not nearly as immersed in it as anyone here is, but I think it makes a ton of sense from a campus perspective. It's so easy for people to tune in and watch and support their team. I think a lot of the time, I look at my friends who I grew up playing Counter-Strike with who are now removed from it. They're all 30 years old. They're working in their careers. They're following what I'm doing very closely, but they're not tuning in. And I think if Toronto had a local Counter-Strike team, for instance, they would tune in if that team were playing in the playoffs due to local team affinity. And you can see that same thing apply across campus. In Canadian schools in particular, it's difficult to get people out to games because of the weather. So if you have all of a sudden collegiate games happening where people can tune in online, I think you'll start to see that viewership really start to scale up. Super excited about what they're doing with scholarships. I was at Naruscope with Neil in Vegas a few months back, and we heard from some of the schools talking about how one of the most pleasant surprises was that the students who were getting these scholarships were also top performing in their classroom. And so we've gotten past that stigma of us being basement dwellers, and they're now starting to realize, wow, people who are good at video games have really high aptitude. And so that, the college scene waking up to that, I think, is going to be hugely instrumental in the scaling of this going forward.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that final sentiment that what we tend to see over and over again is that people that are high performers in games are very, very good at school. From a graduation standpoint, we also see that they end up with higher paying jobs, and that actually esports enthusiasts have higher paying jobs normally as well, or on average as well. So there's no shortage in talent, and there's no shortage in brain power here. I think the other thing I would encourage them to do, on top of all of the networking and the getting out and actually being as social as you possibly can be, would be to not, I know there's some health nuts in the room too, but not to just, you're young, you're in your late teens, early 20s in some instances. Don't forget that, go all in on pro 100%. I would totally support you. But don't forget that, you want to take care of yourself too, take care of your body, get out, do other things, play ultimate frisbee, or just like get out of the dorm room, because I know even as someone that just works in the space, I will go an entire day, look at the clock, and it's 8 p.m. and I'm about to consider playing with my friends, and I realize I haven't left my house all day. So it can suck you in. So I would just encourage that part of that networking, getting out, try to find some social ways to do that, just so that you're not like 21 and like hunched over and not feeling very good about yourself.
I referenced this earlier in my comments, but I know we're here to talk about competitive play at the collegiate level and how it feeds into beyond after college and the pro ranks or not. But I would, for all these players who are so smart in science and technology and engineering and math, there's so many opportunities to be involved in video gaming in a non-competitive way, around the business, around the production, around the creative, around the development. A lot of if you look at who makes the most money, and not that money's everything, but if you're starting a career and you want to be on a good path, the people who make the most money in the video gaming space are the developers, that make the games, that come up with the game concepts, that translate their idea into an iteration in a game, and those are they're the rock stars of this business. They're the Mick Jaggers and the Dave Grohls of video gaming. So to be a pro is only going to get more difficult. When you see how good these players are, the players here in this audience that are competing in this event, these are some of the best players in the world, and it's not easy to compete at this level and to be as good as these guys are. So not everybody can be, I'm sorry to say, not everybody can be in the top 1 to 2%, no different than traditional sports, but there's so many other great opportunities in the video game space, to harken back to what I said earlier, and I would just encourage everybody who's interested in this and wants to invest in themselves and in a career in gaming and esports. There are many other ways to do it aside from being a pro player.
And if you're a new computer science or data science grad, I'd like to talk to you afterwards because we're recruiting.
I'm going to switch it up, go rapid fire down the line. Favorite system to play on and favorite game of all time?
PC and Counter-Strike for sure.
PC and Overwatch.
PlayStation and Pong. I'm the original competitive gamer. I played Pong for beers growing up.
Let's start down here. Oh, that's it? Okay.
Next great esport.
I'm big on Overwatch. I think Overwatch has potential. I think all the skepticism around it is for naught, and I think the resources they're stacking up are only going to help ensure its success. So I'm big on Overwatch.
Player Unknowns just hired a director of esports. I'm pretty excited about seeing how that goes. I've big fan of the game. So
A lot of information. I'm going to mention 2. Breakaway. Everybody familiar with Breakaway? It's going to be big. And the next one, you got to keep an eye out for Quake Champions. One of my company I was involved with earlier, we were the publisher of Quake, and they have studied the marketplace, and they've taken this game to a whole nother level. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but you can expect we're going to have Quake Champions part of our repertoire in the new year. So.
Okay, well, as we run out of time, I want to give you each 30 seconds to plug your organization or your company and talk about what direction you're heading in, what we need to keep our eyes and ears open for, and here's your elevator pitch.
Lots of shameless plugging here. Again, guys, we're Luminosity Gaming. We've got teams competing in 10 different game titles from all across North America and even some from Europe and Brazil. We're localizing here around Toronto, so pay attention for us or to us. We'll be out more and more in the streets here. If you're from Toronto, we'd love to interact with you. Give us a follow, and also check out the EPRC. It's Esports PRC on Twitter.
we are Repable. You can find us at Repable Co on Twitter. We are basically we're the data and analytics for any brand, team, publisher trying to make sense of the space, understand who's up and coming, understand who's ranked in the top percentages, of course, as well. We are effectively the people that will help you make your decisions on where to put your money, developing a credit score, if you will, for every player and team in the space. You can find me on Twitter at Heather Ann, and we are actively going to be hiring in a couple of months. So I always like to plug that because we want good talent, and we let you work from home, and we're a distributed team. So that's also pretty fun.
I just want to, we've had plenty of plugs, but as I mentioned earlier, Monday we start our planning for the 2017-2018 CSL season. So shameless plug for what is coming in the new year. So thrilled to be hosting this event here, and some great things coming in the new season. On the other side of our business, World Gaming and Cineplex, we will be making a big announcement on Wednesday of this week about our next big event that's taking place on the World Gaming platform, and then we'll be culminating in regional events and live events throughout Canada. Wish I could tell you more, but that's just not how it works. But just Wednesday is coming, and you'll hear more about that, as well as the rest of our season. We'll be making some other big announcements about the rest of our scheduling around online to live events in the Cineplex theaters in the coming months.
A few final notes. As I mentioned earlier, we've got Luminosity here, and I'm going to assume that they're here for a reason, not just to have Shane on the panel, but we've got a pretty big day tomorrow, so I think there might be some scouting or recruiting. What do you guys think? Maybe they're looking for the next great CS:GO player, and where's Hector and where's Marty and where's Jack and where's Steve from Team Liquid? Where are they at? They're not here recruiting, so they're missing out on the next great talent. I really want to thank the panel. Thank you to Wim, and thank you to Heather. Thank you to Shane. I hope it was interesting for you guys. We'll be around to answer questions with students, with the brands, and very thrilled that you guys could join us here at the CSL Grand Finals. Thank you very much.